What's up, gamers? Welcome back to a new episode of the Devlog. Today is going to be a two-parter because I'm going to close off the detour of my visual novel and show you all the work I've been doing on the roguelike. But I did want to end on a good note for this little detour because, as I said last time, I had issues with some things that are now resolved. Actually, I just needed to kind of simplify the function that deals with these reference to other dialogues and inner dialogues, but now it's fixed. And yeah, so from now on, most of my work is going to be just working on the way the game looks, because right now, obviously, as you might have seen in the last video, all of the UI is default Godot UI, which is not obviously that ugly, but it's definitely not fit for a game like that. I mean, it's nice when you're making things like I'm sorry, I made a typo somewhere. Instantiate. The word instantiate is a bit hard for me to spell because I'm stupid. And to be honest, sometimes I kind of mess it up. But oh, there you go. It's not that I wrote instantiate, actually. It's that I tried to instantiate a texture 2D, which is obviously not something that is possible. So let me just fix that real quick before I can get into what I was saying. So yeah, unless you're making a tool for Godot, default UI, like this is not really good. So I need to work on that real quick. Well, not real quick, I need to really think about it and like make design documents and work on it, you know what I mean? But what's really gonna happen, I'm just gonna whip something up on Ace Prize and just call it a day, but I need to do that still. And I did want to make it so that each character has a custom chat box, right? Because here it's all the same, it's default, right? But I want it to be like a kind of a custom thing. So changing the theme dynamically depending on who's talking. I'm gonna cut off the game actually because the music is way too loud. So these are things that I do need to do still, but that kind of are more of a game design thing, not really coding or engine design. The engine as it is I don't want to say complete and finished, because there are a few features that I would like to add even for myself later on, but mostly though it's done. It's functional, you can make a game in it, rudimentary game, sure, but you can make a game. It's what I wanted, you know. I just wanted to make something real quick, and that I can add on later. So that's why I made an entire engine rather than hard code something real quick. And I also wanted control over it, which is why I did not use rant. I also like coding, so you know, I'm kind of a masochist when it comes to programming and stuff like that. So I like to make things myself. But yeah, it's pretty much done. I'm going to showcase now the character, or what they look like, because really since last time it's pretty much all I've done, because the programming part has been kind of dealt with for a while. Well, not for a while, but it's been dealt with. And also I've been writing the game, like the story and stuff, and if you've noticed, I mean you have obviously, because you have a keen eye, all the text is not in English, and I mean you probably did not recognize the language because it's not French either. It's my own custom language, which is a conlang. We call that conlang in the field, constructed language. It's a portmanteau. And most of my game, if not all of my games, I want them to be available in my conlang, if not only in that conlang. You know what I mean? Like, for my roguelike, I'm making it French, because it's much easier for me to write stuff in French than in my custom language. And also, I could write in English, right? Because it's easier as well. I mean, anything is easier than conlang, basically. But the thing with French games is that there's not many games that are only in French. You know what I mean? Even to the point where, like, very, very French games like Expedition 33, you know what I mean, Clair Obscur, was written in English first, then translated to French, which I think is really sad, to be honest. And I think that's the case for most AAA studios, or, like, you know, big indie studios like the people who made Clair Obscur, is that they think first and foremost in a money way, like what's going to make money. And obviously what's going to make money is selling your game in English, because there are much more English speakers in the world than there are French speakers. And even if you consider the entirety of French speakers, only a fraction of them play video games, because a lot of them don't come from, like, westernized cultures where video games is like a staple of entertainment. So it's much easier monetarily to justify making a game in English than it is to make a game in French. And as you can imagine, it's also much easier to make justifiable economically to make a game in a living language that people actually know and speak than a game that you have created yourself. And obviously that's not my goal. Is not to make money with these, but just explaining why I am making these decisions. Well, no, I'm actually explaining why people don't make these decisions. I'm not explaining why I do them. The reason why I make these decisions is because I'm stupid and I like making things. So I was saying about games in French. Most games that are French, made by French people, French companies, French whatever, coders, writers, artists, musicians, are not written in French first. They are usually written in English first. Ubisoft games, all written in English. Ubisoft is more understandable because, you know, they have studios all over the world and you need a lingua franca for that. And English kind of comes with that allure of being a lingua franca, even though French is actually not, you know. It could be because they have studios in Quebec and in France and in Belgium and stuff like that. So, you know. But they chose English, obviously, because they have studios in the US and in Canada, but English-speaking Canada and stuff like that, so, you know. But games like Dead Cells, which is an indie game that won, like, Best Indie Game at the Game of the Year, I was when I played it, and I've played it for hundreds of hours, that it was written in English first, even though it's a 100% French-speaking studio from Bordeaux, which is like in France, and it's a small indie studio, so they didn't need to speak another language to understand each other, you know, the way maybe Warhorse needs, because they are all over Europe, Eastern Europe. But like in that case, it's like all in France. Same for Clair Obscur. While they do have some English-speaking members of the team, the writers are French, and they decided to write in English nonetheless. And, you know, I could go on and on. Like, sure, there are some French games that are written in French first, then translated into English. But, you know, I aspire to be more like this than to, you know, writing something in English for it to be then translated in French. That feels silly. Obviously, Nothing wrong with writing in English, if that's your jam. I actually do love writing in English, stories and stuff like that, but in my opinion, when you don't do it for the right reasons, it kind of loses some, when you do it for money reasons, the way I think Clair Obscur did it, because clearly these fuckers don't really speak English very well, and let alone write stories in English and dialogue in English very well. I mean, it really shows, to be honest, when you play the game, even though it was probably proofwritten and stuff like that by English speakers and stuff like that. In my opinion, Clair Obscur dialogue would have been 100 times better if it was written first in French, in a language that the author actually knows well, and then translated into English by a competent translator of English and understander of French. But here they probably forced themselves to write in English, or either wrote like bullet points in French and kind of filled it out in English then, which is, an easy way to write something if you don't really fully master a language. And in my opinion, it's a very sad way to do things, especially if you're, as they were, doing it for money, because obviously they received funding from an English-speaking company, and their goal was to release worldwide. And, nothing says worldwide in 2025 than English, obviously. So that's kind of why I decided to write in French. And I'd like to also to talk about Larian Studio, because they're a Belgium-based company. At least they used to be. I don't know if they still are. It seems to me that they've mostly moved to England now, or at least the United Kingdom. I'm not sure where. But they used to be a Belgium-based company, and a French-speaking Belgium-based company, because if you don't know, Belgium is divided into roughly 3 areas. One that speaks French, the other one that speaks Flemish, which is kind of like Dutch, but not really, and a small, very small, like German-speaking minority, I mean. And obviously, it seems to me that they also wrote their game in English. And as much as I love Larian, that's sad, in my opinion, because, you could have written it in French, and then translated it to English. But obviously they have English voice actors, and they have everything, and they don't really necessarily want to double up on voice actors. It's a whole mess. So because it's the same for Clair Obscur, right? The English version is dubbed fully voice acted, but the French version does not have its own voice acting. It's all in English with French subtitles, which are, by the way, translated so fucking poorly that you can see the English sentence structure behind it. It's like they fucking use ChatGPT or something. I don't know. I'm not here to make accusations. I'm just here to say that the French version of Clair Obscur is terrible. The translation is stilted at best. So yeah, just saying that for me, it's artistically much more satisfying to write a story that I think deserves to be in French, and some games I write full in English, right? Because I think that it serves them better to be written in English. And I think that's also, I like to write in English, so sometimes I'm just in an English mood, and sometimes I'm just in a French mood, and sometimes I'm in a something else mood. And for this game, I'm definitely in a French mood. Either way, this game I'm writing right now, this visual novel, is not going to be in French or in English. First and foremost, it's going to be in my own conlang, which is called Kyih, for reasons quite simple. I'm insane. Oh, sorry. But yeah. By the way, I will, I mean, it is my hope that I will one day be able to translate all my games into Kyih, and also to be able to translate my roguelite like into English. It is fully my hope that I will one day be able to do that. Obviously, that's in the future, because I'd rather spend time just making the games and translating it as I go, and just fucking like hitting my head on the wall being like, what word do I choose for this? You know what I mean? And also, I feel like, in my opinion at least, if I one day translate my roguelike into English, I will not translate it actually whatsoever. I will just write an entire new version of the game in English. You know what I mean? Because translating is kind of a vibe-based thing, and you know, I like to actually do it vibe-based instead of, you know, pretending it's like a rigorous science and that there is a better translation than all others, and you need to really like do this. I like to see it as a vibe-based thing, and to practice it as such, which is probably why I would be a terrible translator in a market conditions, obviously. But for my own game, obviously, I will. And that's why I don't really want to do it right now, because writing 2 sets of the same game basically is just too much to do, to be honest. Which is a shame, because sometimes I come up with a good, like, for instance, like one of the more common form of writing for my roguelike is like writing an item description, and sometimes I come up with a really nice English description for a certain object item that doesn't really translate well in French. Like, there are some things that are very culturally bound and that are cultural touchstones in English speaking countries, that even though they technically could be translated word for word, lose all flavor when they're translated. And sometimes I do come up with something that's really nice in English and it sounds good, and it's like, yeah, I recognize this template, this cultural template that everybody who speaks English kind of gets. And I'm like, no, I need to write in French here. I need to write in French. And so I just come up with something that's, in my opinion, worse. I don't like as much, but I want it to be in French anyways. But, you know, that's just the way it is. Same sometimes when I'm writing this visual novel, I come up with a sentence in English or in French that's in my head really nice. It's like, yeah, this sentence structure and stuff like that, it's really nice for what I want to convey here, but I need to put it back into my own conlang, and I'm like, what do I do? Because also I don't speak my own conlang as well as speak English or French, obviously. So, you know, it's a bit complicated sometimes, but that's kind of like what you do. Sometimes you spend 20 minutes pondering how to write a sentence just to write something that's alright, but, you know, that's how we roll here. So let me show you, after this little big rant, let me show you my character designs for this game. So how can I show them in a bigger, in a better way than just having them on the side here? Let me think. I might want to just share my file manager. Now I think about it. Let me just add a new capture of this. Is this that? Nope, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. There you go. Actually, I'm not gonna show you my file manager because there might be things that I don't want you to see. Well, actually, no, it's fine. Now I see. Yeah, but it's not going. It's not going to show the characters any better. Let me show you my desktop. Let me do a desktop capture. a screen capture. Yep, there you go. Display capture, there you go. That's the word I was looking for. And show you the characters. So this is a very important character in the game because it's like one of the first monk that you meet upon arriving at the, well, it's the first like kind of big honcho that you meet, because you do meet someone that's kind of like a random NPC. By the way, all random NPCs have the same sprite. This is it. As you can see, you don't show their face, and it's just very basic design. I don't really... they're forgettable, that's the point. But after meeting just a random guy, you meet this guy, and he's the oldest monk at this monastery, abbey, whatever, you know. And yeah, he's the one who kind of like introduces the story to you. There are a few other people that I'm not really decided what their role is. This guy, I don't know what he's gonna do. I kind of want to make him so that each head has like its own name and personality, and like he starts, then he continues, and then he finishes. Might be a bit annoying to do, but I'm sorry. We'll see what I can do. Then there's this guy, which is one of the first character design I came up with. He's scary, right? And I kind of want it to be like a red herring, because he's scary. You think he... Oh, by the way, it's a murder mystery in a monastery, in an abbey. And I want it, because he's scary, I want you to, you know, be the first kind of like suspect in the story. So, yeah. And then there's the murder victim, which is not really dead. He used to be, you know, a goblin, but now he's dead, and so his soul is coming out of his mouth to kind of recount what happened, but obviously he did not see what happened really, so he's not really helpful, but you know, that's just a funny thing. And there's the abbot, which is the king of the monastery. As you can see, he's the only one not wearing anything, and he's the only one which is portrait. Why, right? And I think that's what's quite funny. It's going to make for a very funny moment when you enter the abbot's kind of like office, sorry, and like you open the door, and instead of seeing just a regular monk or just another guy with a robe, it's going to be like, first of all, very like up close to you, and like drawn in detail, and like gross kind of. Let's be honest, he's gross. So yeah, so these are the characters. Maybe I'll add more later, but I mean, just making different like, you know, faces for each character. Like this is the first guy, Akam, his name is, which is he's in angry mode here. He's going to be like a lot of work already, so I'm not sure I will add too many more characters. But you know, I'm kind of liking where it's going, and yeah. So I will real quick change project in Godot and show you what I've been doing on my roguelike, which is kind of why I started this series. But you know, as I said, I wanted to finish my detour. So let me get into it. It's loading. I need every time I change project, I need to go into OBS to see to switch capture. There you go. So I've done a lot, actually, like a fuckload of things. I didn't realize I was so late in the like dev process concerning the devlog and in the actual development of the game. But let me show you what I have done. Wrong image. There you go. I don't know why it's so freaking big. Let me... There you go. That's much better. Okay. Oh yeah, I moved the spawn point somewhere else. I was doing some testing. Don't mind that. Also, as you probably noticed, I removed the animation, the movement animation, for stupid reasons. I've been working out a lot of collision bugs, and I'm still working at it. And I did realize that changing the character's position with a twinner kind of disables collision detection in static objects. So I switched to a character, but it's 3D, 2D, I think, and kind of used move and collide as a function for it to detect collisions, but it's still not working. I still clip with enemies, and I was able, using a raycast, to stop collision. Like not stop collision obviously, but stop meshing, like two characters ending up on the same tile and not being able to move again. Then I did something wrong, and it stopped working. And anyways, I never got the enemies to clip into each other's body and collision body. So that's kind of annoying. I'm still working it out. That's kind of like I've made a lot of progress, to be honest, because first of all, I've recognized I've switched everything from a twinner. I'm going to go back to the twinner. I just need to rewrite it so that, you know, with the raycast it works better. And I just kind of like learned about the await function with twinners. I know it's a bit late to learn about that, but hey, better late than never, you know. And yeah, I need to get things working. It's just a lot of troubleshooting, but it's not all I've been working on. And actually, I've been working on something that's freaking sweet, as Peter Griffin would say. It's actually a freaking entire new type of map, like a new map algorithm, just transforming kind of how the map is created. So basically what I've been doing and what I plan on doing further is that there is the dungeon generating algorithm that I've shown you times and times again, and it creates a very standard dungeon that's like not boring but really just classic. And then this algorithm is actually quite powerful in the way that I've written it, so that I can kind of pretty much shape everything the way I want it. And so what I've done is that I've just, by changing a few parameters and arguments, and also by doing a little bit of like coding, adding things and stuff like that, I've been able to create quite simply a new type of map, which is which I call a subterranean, like underground city. Basically, imagine just like a city underground. That's kind of what it is. And so in this city, instead of, you know, rooms connected by corridors and stuff like that, it's a wide open space with houses that are joined with pathways. And yeah, so let me show you. Actually, it's probably, I also just working things out has allowed me to improve tremendously the algorithm, because in ways that I didn't think to do earlier. So as you can see, this is a house. It uses the same. Well, I just clipped into an enemy. Oh, I can unclip now. Okay, that's probably not the best, but whatever. So as you can see, it uses the same wood as outside, meaning like it's still an underground city, but it's probably in the shallow depth of the ground, because they are able to buy wood from the surface and build things out. So it's probably more like a existing cave system that does link back to the city above. But as you can see, the paths are a different color than the rest. I use the same algorithm for the path that I use for the, what's it called? Corridors and hallways and stuff like that. So it kind of goes, because I wanted the hallways to be kind of serpentine, you know, and not straight. Same for the pathways. Obviously for short pathways like that, it looks ridiculous, but when houses are far away, it makes sense that they're not straight and like people just walk around and you know. Also, like, it's freaking empty right now, you know. I also made it so you can dezoom, unzoom. This is much farther than you will eventually be able to do, but for debugging reasons and like looking around reasons, it's really useful to have a very far out view. But yeah, you probably here is where you're going to be able to stop in the finished game, maybe even here, but right now I can just go very, very far. But you go also very far in, which is unplayable basically. But you know, if you want to kind of like get immersed and play some role play things and stuff like that, you can. So yeah, I mean, there's not that much to say. I can just explore and show you a bit around. There used to be a problem where doors would not generate in this section, or like a lot of houses would overlap and stuff like that. It was really ugly, but I fixed it all, and as you can see, these pathways do make a lot of sense in my opinion, in the way they look, and the way they link things together. Obviously there's going to be a bit more things in the outside, like to fill out the space, and maybe I will make it a bit more compact as a map. The map is pretty big as of now. I'm just seeing that everything works, you know. I'm still in that very early phase of development where it's not all done, and yeah, I'm quite happy with how it looks though, and how the houses are dispersed and how everything links together. I mean, it's awesome, and didn't really need to rewrite an entire algorithm for it, which is very good. And it's kind of making me very, like, it's filling me with hope for the future, where if I want to make like a big city underground, I can very easily do that. If I want to make maybe a mix between a cavern and a city, and like, you know, I can do a bunch of different things pretty easily. So yeah, that's what I've been doing, really. Troubleshooting, collision detection, and making this work. Also, you know, troubleshooting a bunch of different things, because, you know, it's a bit of a difficult thing to do overall. But yeah, I'm quite proud with what I've been doing, and obviously do expect more next week. See you on Wednesday for a Minecraft video, and I might start a new series. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe not a series, but like make a few videos about a game I've been eyeing and looking to play. Well, it's a demo actually, but I don't want to say too much right now, because if I don't do it, well, I look like a dumbass. So I'll see you either on Wednesday or on Monday. Bye bye.